Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 223. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. You can find it absolutely everywhere. Check us out live on our YouTube channel. Thank you to all of those that have subscribed, that have tuned in. We try to do this on Sunday nights around 8 p.m., but of course, the audio is available everywhere on Twitter at Good Guys TB. This is our fifth season, talking White Sox. To join me, as usual, my very good friend, diehard White Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, it's great to talk to you. Happy sweep of the Motor City Kitties. I don't know what I'm more excited about. I mean, Taylor Swift was in town this week. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, dropped into theaters, which was fantastic. And again, like I mentioned, the Sox win a series. It's great. We're 5.5 out, 9 games under. Look out. Start alerting the rest of baseball, I guess. Get on the phone. Have you been working the phones? Usually you have the American League and I have the National League. Yeah. I'll start making these phone calls. Yep. Look out. Get ready. Get yourself prepared. Here come the White Sox. 9 games under. We're coming for you, right? You feeling good? Sox are back?
When Pat and I were in, I think it was college. It was like 2002, maybe. Is that right? Or 2003?
Well,
and the Sox
we would have been in college then. Yeah.
The Sox swept a tough Baltimore team, if I remember, at home on the South Side. We were at the game. I think my brothers might have been there, a couple other friends of ours, and you could have thought that we had just won the pennant. I mean, people were going nuts in Lot B. I think either my brother or somebody was on top of the car with a broom, swinging it over his head. We were yelling.
That would be Josh. That would be Josh.
Probably Josh. Alert the rest of the league. Alert the rest of the American League team. The White Sox are here. I mean, look, hey, it's a sweep. That's great compared to what happened to the Sox the previous weekend. Against Detroit, where they lost 3 or 4 to Detroit in Detroit. And to have the Detroit Tigers come to town, some of the just ugliest baseball that was played, especially on Saturday. I mean, there was really like no offense this entire weekend. We're going to get to it. We'll get into some of these moments here, but it was Jake Burger, grand slam, walk-off, burger bomb, where Grifol didn't want to play him for the first couple games of this series, even though he just kills at home, gets an opportunity on Sunday, all handedness, all of Grifol and his handedness stuff and matchups and playing the percentages. He gets an opportunity, and what a way to end it. But you remove that grand slam, which I don't want to do. There wasn't a lot going on offensively with this ball club. Sox are now 26-35 on the season, 5.5 games back in the most forgiving of all divisions in all of baseball. So that's where we stand right now, off day on Monday. And then things get real, a 3-game series in New York. So of the 3 then, Pat, Swift being in town, which I know you've got, your allegiances. I know where your allegiances lie.
Are you a Swiftie, by the way? Have you ever been to a Taylor Swift?
Absolutely. You could give me nothing against it. I've just, you could give me probably a list of her songs mixed in with a couple other songs by different artists.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to figure it out.
Got
it. No surprise to, I think, a lot of people that actually know me at all. There's no surprise there. But the Spider-Man movie, Sweep of the Sox. I mean, what's your number one? Is it the Spider-Man movie?
Wow, I did go. Well, first of all, I've never gone to a concert in my life, so I'm not a Swiftie by any means. But I did see a ton of people coming off the trains as I was leaving on Friday.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. I would not want to be downtown on Friday as everybody and their mother just descended on Soldier Field. So not excited about that at all by any means. I did see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse yesterday. Fantastic movie, Nick. I'm telling you, if you are a comic book fan, movie fan of what's going on, I took my boys, all 3 of them, in fact, even the 3-year-old. It was fantastic. Had a blast. Highly recommend that movie. They did a great job with that. But the Sox sweeping the Tigers is what makes or breaks the weekend. And today was just icing on the cake. Fun game, right? It was a fun game.
Kopech was great.
Kopech, again, great. Again, against the Tigers, who I wouldn't say they're the offensive juggernaut that's going to be envious of other, fan bases. But, I like what he's been putting together over the last 4 to 5 starts. I mean, you really have to like what you've seen from Michael Kopech. I mean, you've had the highest of highs, but he's been able to maintain it mostly over the last couple of starts. So I'll take this win. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure we'll talk about Saturday's game a lot. And
yeah, in detail.
That was Saturday. But let's think back to that. Let's take ourselves back in time to that 10-game losing streak in April. We would have loved to get a couple of these wins somewhere mixed in there just to break that up, right? So I'm not going to apologize and say Saturday was a fluke, Friday was a 3-0 game, and today not a lot happened until the 9th inning, and you can pick apart all this stuff, right? I would take any of these 3 wins, put them in April to make us feel a little better about ourselves, and we'll take it and say thank you very much, and we'll just go on to the next series. It's not going to be, it doesn't have to always be pretty. It's not going to always be pretty. I'll be appreciative of the wins at this point. We're 5.5 games under or behind in this division, and there's still a lot of work to do. But as I mentioned before, as I've said for several weeks, this team is very flawed, but this division is very flawed along with it. If there's anything that can happen, this team can come back and try and reclaim first place. It may be a 500 team that wins this division. It may be an 83 and 81 or whatever it would be team that wins this. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy the ride now at this point, because the team is really not going to get much better. I highly doubt it's going to sell off anything, and I highly doubt it's going to be a buyer either. So just enjoy the ride, I guess.
Yeah, I want to get to that later in this episode because I struggle with that. Do I want to see this team just win the AL Central, but they have nothing to get them past that? They can't even get out of the first round. It's like, great, you won the worst division in the league, and they didn't sell off things to maybe set up for the next few years to help bolster the farm system. Do I want to see them hold on to everything and win this Central for not much else and kind of and set themselves back even further? Or just say, you know what, I know where we're at, and maybe sell some things. There's a lot of articles, no shortage of articles that talked about it nationally and locally this past week on where the Sox could go and what could happen. So Sox were 8-21 in April, 15-14, Pat, in May, which is, I think, something you talked about at the end of April. Like, let's be 500 maybe in May. And now they're 3-0 in June. But
look out.
Look, I again, nothing's easy. And I didn't think Detroit was going to be easy based on what happened to us the last time we played them. But I thought that this was the most manageable maybe of the series in June when I'm looking at this schedule. There's a lot of teams that, are playing above 500 baseball. Yankees, I think, are 10 games over 500, and they're 6.5 out in the AL East. So you're right, though. Wins are wins. You'll take them, and hopefully, somehow things have to start clicking, though, with this offense. I like what the pitching has done as of late, though, Pat. You mentioned Michael Kopech. He went 7 innings on Sunday, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, a walk, 9 strikeouts, gave up a home run. 60 of his 92 pitches were for strikes, with 11 swinging strikes. Last 4 starts for Kopech, 26 innings, 11 hits, 6 earned runs, 4 walks, 38 strikeouts, 3 home runs, 95 batters faced. So you are not going to get the Kopech that you got that went Royals Guardians. Okay, you're not going to get that consistently. But I like this body of work recently from Michael Kopech. To me, it's all about arm slot, repeatable motion. I think the confidence there, we know he has the stuff, but sometimes it's almost like a gear slips out or something, something slips and he all of a sudden starts flying balls out of the zone. He can't get right and he falls behind, and then guys just eat his lunch on something middle when he tries to come back. So I've been happy with Kopech, happy with all the starting pitching this past weekend. Clevenger came back from the IL. He looked sharp, high velocity on Friday. And then Cease, like to see him go 6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah.
He only went 5 and change through 99 pitches, but gave up very little. And Saturday, was the game that was one of the most bizarre endings, the most bizarre game. They talked about it after on NBC Sports Chicago. Chris Kampke had all this stuff on that old Andy Hawkins game that I remember, and I'm sure you remember too as a kid when that was being played. We were maybe playing like street baseball or something, and I remember my parents, somebody yelling out like, "Sox just won and they got no hit," and we like raced in to watch, all the post game highlights and everything. It was so bizarre. But Saturday, in the entire game, there were 3 runs scored, and they were all like on wild pitches. There were no RBIs. I think it's the first time in history that's ever done it. It's just, hopefully you saw the ending.
I did see the ending, and I trying to explain it to my wife afterwards, because we had a baseball game. We got home, and trying to explain to my wife, I said, "Listen, you don't understand. There was no." There was no RBIs. There was all the runs scored were on wild pitches. And the last play of the game, the umpire takes it right
Square.
in the face.
Middle.
Like the glove didn't even get it on it. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, the umpire took it right in the beak at 95 miles an hour.
96, I think.
Holy Lord in heaven. And he goes down like a sack of potatoes. And nobody knows what's going on. And we win the game. And TA,
he turned around to the ump.
Yeah.
I think the good folks at Last Comiskey tweeted that out.
Yeah.
About noticing, hey, TA, he turned right around and was trying to tend. I think, is it Haas who was behind home plate? Detroit's catcher. He had no clue what to do. His head was like the whiplash that occurred of do I try to tend to the ump? The ball's getting away. We've got a run that's coming in. I don't know what to do.
I don't think he saw the ball, and he saw the umpire down, and he said, "I don't know where the ball's at." So I guess I should help
that could have been it.
This poor bastard up.
It was just mass hysteria. But I'm sorry, the replay, I couldn't watch enough of it. I mean, middle, right in the face mask. Now, hopefully everything's okay with.
I think
he went into concussion protocol, though. I think he was definitely in treatment. And how could you not when you take that square like that? Just like doink. I mean, it looked like at a county fair or something when you're trying to knock something down off of
down the clown.
Down the clown. Just
the clown went down.
Man, right in the kisser.
Oh boy.
It seemed like there was, if I told you there might have been a cross up, would you believe me? I think Haas might have been thinking there could have been a breaking ball or
something low and away. Something
a little down and low, and got a 96er chin high, but
the old 96er right in the face,
right in this, just right. Bam, in the nose. Now, I was a little league umpire for one summer many years ago. One of my many jobs.
Yeah,
and I never took one off.
We could do a whole podcast on just the ex jobs of a Nick Murawski.
Oh, we absolutely could. And I think the toe was a commonplace. You get hit off the shin guard, but man, I never took a foul ball or even a pitch off of the face. That
you had any little leaguers throwing 96 miles an hour either? Nick?
No, you're correct. Yeah, that would be kind of odd. You might have to check on some paperwork or something.
Some kid with a mustache out there smoking a cigarette, pumping 96. I don't know if this kid's 8 years old or not.
25 feet, whatever the mound is at that age. Yeah. So that was Saturday, and but again, just 0 to no offense. But bullpen was solid. And how about Liam Hendricks, Pat? Since the last time we talked, he has not only made his 2023 debut, made it at home, and what an electric crowd that night. Good on them. Good on everybody. his wife up there. They were showing her. What I loved about that game is when he was going to come in from the bullpen, they didn't cut to commercial, and they showed his whole entrance in the game, the whole, the strobes going off, all the stuff that you have experienced being there live. And you got to just soak up all that energy and all that just adrenaline. And you can only imagine what was going on in the ballpark with him. And, he wasn't terribly sharp, but he pitched in a game months, after the diagnosis. It's an unreal story. And what he did this past weekend. I mean, Sunday was awesome to see him out there, get a strikeout. He was in there in the ninth to get a strikeout to end the inning, and that just fist pump, the just screaming, the emotion, and got the win on National Cancer Survivors Day. I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around that. Like, it gives me goosebumps talking about it. I mean, it's such an amazing, just personal story for a human, let alone someone trying to come back and play a professional sport, and obviously with our team, the White Sox.
Yeah, just very poetic with today's win, obviously, as you mentioned, and and he's looking back to himself.
You think he goes? Should he be ninth inning guy, Mr. Save?
I don't know why he shouldn't be. I mean, at this point, why not? I mean, the options that you have worked a little bit. You've piecemealed them together to make things happen for you to a tune of 9 games under. So what is it really going to hurt if you put this guy that he's your closer? He is your closer. You put him back in the closer's role. He's gone.
I think he's earned it. I think he's ready to go.
Right. And I think it just helps everybody else. Everybody else, again, like we've talked about, everybody goes back to their regular post, right? Get back to where you're supposed to be, where you feel comfortable. Everybody just kind of falls into place here in the bullpen, which again is pitching a lot better than it did in April. Let's be honest with ourselves. Joe Kelly, a hiccup here or there, but mostly been fantastic. And Bummer has come in and done some things that have been positive. Ronaldo Lopez has done things that have been positive as of late, as has
Middleton.
Middleton has been fantastic. Really,
absolutely,
let's be honest. So the bullpen has been a strength this past month.
Santos,
So that's all good. You just add a guy like Liam Hendricks into that mix. It can only strengthen it. You would think, in theory, it should strengthen it. So I think you put him right back there.
Earlier in the week, you had Lopez. I think it was in an Angels series that he went like 6-7, which was a great kind of bridge to. I think they went maybe Kelly 8 and then Graveman 9, which again, like that could be a nice little role for Lopez. He pitched well in that kind of a bridge to get to maybe a Kelly and then a Hendricks. Kelly has just been, his stuff is so good, but he can get into traps where he might just decide, I'm going to pump this right down the middle if I get behind on somebody. And that's where he got hurt last weekend against the Tigers when they took 3 of 4.
Yeah.
And they ate Kelly up on that Saturday game. But he's got that, he quick pitched a guy on Sunday. He's got that herky-jerky motion, very Cueto-like, where he's trying to throw you off. He's been kind of fun to watch compared to last year. And the bullpen was a strength in this series, as I think starting pitching was. The offense just, it's absolutely a concern. Like the way they played offensively this past series against Detroit, that's not sustainable. And Detroit threw a pitcher, Boyd, on Sunday. And I was listening to a good chunk of the game on the radio. So Connor and DJ had the call, and they were talking about Boyd's ERA coming into Sunday's game was 6+ at Sox Park. And at that point, he was just like absolutely mystifying White Sox hitters. And Connor and DJ were just kind of like verbally shaking their head. Like, how does this happen? And they were trying to talk through it of what could be going wrong and what you might be overcompensating or overconfident, or, all this stuff, which is, again, just complete, just word garbage. I mean, I'm tired of these excuses. This offense really needs to figure some things out consistently. It was almost like this entire weekend. On Friday, there was a guy, Olsen, on the mound for Detroit that it was, performing magic tricks against the White Sox until Romy Gonzalez figured things out. And so we can bounce around a little bit with the Detroit series and some other specifics, but I want to talk Romy Gonzalez because Elvis Andrus came back. Okay. Clevenger came back, and Cactus League legend Hanser Alberto DFA'd.
Moment of silence.
A little bit. Let's just give it. Okay.
All right.
He won the job, and he beat out Lurie Garcia in the spring. I thought
another moment of silence. No.
What? I think we
other people
DFA'd. We might have addressed Lurie Garcia, the moment of silence,
a
long time ago. But not a shock. I just didn't think it was going to happen because he was Pedro's guy. But then you start thinking, where is he going to fit when you got Romy playing the way he's playing? Berger, which you got to find a spot in the lineup unless you're Pedro Grifol and you don't play him on Friday or Saturday, I don't think, at home. So Elvis Andrus, the veteran, although I'm not getting much from Elvis Andrus. I mean, he's playing out of position and he's got no bat. So you're keeping him around maybe for, I guess, just being a veteran. So, look, it was like, okay, Hanser Alberto, sorry, that was a good experiment. That was fun for a little while. Pedro got his guy and then had to say goodbye to him. What I'm now realizing, Pat, that I'm just not comfortable with is there's all of a sudden now in June a position battle at second base. Okay, and Grifol pretty much said it, where he said, when Elvis came back, like, well, I could see Elvis like earning that position back. I could see him as a veteran, stepping up to the challenge and coming back and reclaiming second. We're doing this in June.
Yeah.
You have got right now to ride the hot hand. Okay. You have got to ride whatever you can to scrape a few wins, to claw out of this 9-game hole. You got to continue to play Berger. And Romy Gonzalez has shown me more than enough to get consistent playing time at second.
Romy Gonzalez has shown you a lot of things. He's shown you some speed. He's shown you a fantastic glove. He's shown you some offense with some pop, right? And he's shown you some like baseball IQ that I think this team lacks a lot of, and some athleticism too that this team lacks a lot of. So I don't think you can take him out of the lineup. Now, it doesn't mean that he's ultimately going to be an all-star and he's going to be playing second base for the next 10 years with this ball club. Who knows what kind of player Romy Gonzalez will ultimately be. But right now, there's no reason to take him out of the lineup. You play him until he plays himself out of the lineup. And again, we talked about it last week. Remember what the topic was. If I had told you in June, Nick, we'd be still, if Eloy Jimenez would be playing right field on a consistent basis, and we'd still be having questions at second base, would you have believed me? And you would have probably said, no, how can that be? We thought we had this all figured out before we got here. And we'd probably be 9 games over 500 rather than 9 games under. But that's where we're at right now, is you have these conversations that are happening. I would like to think, with what I've seen from Pedro, as far as, the DFAing of Alberto, his guy you had mentioned, not hanging on to Lurie Garcia, making some difficult choices that need to be made. I don't think he's loyal to an Elvis Andrus and saying, you're a veteran guy, you're just going to get that spot. I think if the manager was still here from last year, that would probably be the case. But I'd like to think with the manager, and again, I don't know what kind of manager Pedro Grifol really is yet. I have no idea. I can't really tell you if he's getting a passing grade or a C or a D. I really couldn't tell you. But I would like to think that he's going to play the people in their positions that are going to give them the best ability to win. And if Elvis Andrus is that ultimate, utility knife type guy, he came in and played third today for the first time in his career, and you can play an Elvis Andrus in several different positions on the infield, so be it. And you really probably need him as a backup, because inevitably you'd have to think that TA is going to get hurt again, because That's what happens to TA. He will inevitably go down for several weeks at a time. So having Elvis Andrus as a backup at short is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing to have him on the team, but when a team is lacking the offense that they're just lacking, I mean, this past week, I feel like for a while I was talking about on Locked On, like the way Romy goes is the way the team's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, it just seemed like he was getting big hit after big hit, big moment after big moment, and that's why I keep playing him. You know, but when Pedro like brought Elvis into play, I think on Saturday over Romy, I was like, are you doing this just so you can now start your own type of battle? And you're like, you're going to give Elvis an opportunity to maybe try to get hot. And it's like, can you win it, Elvis? Oh, okay. All right. Well, now we're going to go back to Romy. Like that's not a game that should be played in June. Elvis, I think in 5 at-bats since coming back, is 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. So small sample size, but not a surprising offensive sample size from Elvis right now.
Yeah. And I'm with you, Nick. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to have any kind of battle right now. And maybe it was just a thing like this is a great opportunity to give Romy some time. He is still a young player. Give him a little breather, get him off his feet a little bit. And, you know, have him available off the bench if we need him in a pinch run situation here or there. I get a lot of that stuff. But again, I'd like to think he's going to go look at, especially what Romy's done defensively. I mean, we could talk a lot about what he's done offensively, but defensively, he's made some spectacular plays.
He has,
and things that we're just not used to seeing over the past couple of years from a White Sox team. The spectacular defense and web gem type of defense. I mean, it's other than Luis Robert, I guess I should take that back. Other than Luis Robert, there really hasn't been anybody that you go, wow. You just sit back and go, wow, that was an amazing play by anybody. So I like to have that. You'd like to have that again, defense up the middle, being strong.
Defense matters. Despite what Grifol has said about, you know, like Berger, who did have some time at second base recently. You know, it matters. I just don't want somebody there to just, hey, look, don't embarrass yourself. Don't hurt the team. You don't have to make spectacular plays. Just make plays. That should not be the bar. That's been the problem with this White Sox team for so many years. And if you've got a guy that's giving you plus defense and has got pop in the bat, you know, it's a no-brainer. You're my consistent second baseman.
That theory works, as you just mentioned. Don't embarrass yourself if you're scoring 7 to 8 runs a game.
Right.
And we are not doing that. So you still
have
to
margin
look
of error
at it.
is small.
Yeah. And I get it. You're in a little bit of a rock and a hard place situation when you're looking at your lineup and going, I've got to make sure I get this guy in the lineup because we're so, starved for runs being scored. How can I get this? How can I get this guy in the lineup? How can I get that guy in the lineup? But at the end of the day, again, Romy Gonzalez should be playing 90% of the time at second base, and it really should be a question about it.
Eloy has been in right field. It looks like that's going to continue until he gets hurt. Hopefully that's not the case, but I think I think he's going to be your right fielder for a majority now. And he's been swinging the bat pretty well. You know, He's been collecting his hits, not a lot of power, but getting on base, which is fine, and staying healthy. The whole Robert Eloy center field, right field thing, the shenanigans sometimes of Robert just trying to steal everything he can from Eloy and I guess right center, that needs to stop. I saw it come up this past week 1 or 2 times. It's like, Robert, I know you're trying to overcompensate sometimes, but there's going to be a collision before you know it. So hopefully that gets avoided. Grifol said something maybe 2 days ago. TA's been scuffling, and he is not going to be. He's not going to be removed from that top of the lineup. It's just not going to happen. I don't think so, unless TA literally like removes himself. We haven't seen the power from TA recently. He's been getting some hits, getting on base. Grifol said, "Look, the way Tim goes, this team goes." Is that still the case in your mind? Do you still think like Tim Anderson, how he performs, how he plays Well, he sets the stage, the table.
Yeah.
He's the one that stirs this whole thing up. I don't think so anymore. I think the Sox are, the Sox need him on the team, in the lineup. They're a better team with him, of course, in the lineup. But I don't think he's that guy that, we go by way of Tim. I don't even know who it is right now.
Yeah, I don't know who it is right now either. All I know is this lineup needs to. We've been saying it, I feel like, for 3 years. They need to figure out how to walk a little bit more. Did they have today manage to make it through the day with how many walks? They had one through, I think, 8 innings. And I don't know,
I think
like double-digit strikeouts.
Double-digit strikeouts for sure has been an absolute problem for this team. I don't remember 14 strikeouts or something like that.
And I think the other day, I think Saturday, they didn't get their first walk until the 9th inning. I could be wrong about that. All I know is that this team doesn't get on base enough. And Tim Anderson being a leadoff hitter that, again, he just wants to get out of slumps by swinging at everything, a la Luis Robert. Like,
oh, yeah.
Listen, man, I know you want to swing all the time, but maybe once in a while, just try and get on base any way you can, because the swing and miss stuff it infuriates me a little bit, especially against the Tigers closer. I mean, the guy doesn't throw anything but balls, and they swing at everything. I mean, today they got to him, obviously, in the game winner with a walk-off grand slam, but goodness gracious, Tim Anderson. I mean, I get it. You want to swing, and that's how you've made your career, by getting hits. But if you're not able to get on base and you're the guy that's stirring the whole thing, you got to get on base any way you can. And maybe taking a pitch here, they're working a pitcher once in a while is great. I mean, today, first pitch, he gets a hit. That's great. But after that, I mean, work this guy a little bit. Try and get on base via the walk. Somebody's got to set that tone. And it'd be nice if he would at the top of the lineup, because between him and Benintendi, 0 home runs from either one of those guys. I mean, it is an absolute. I mean, it's mind-boggling, actually, that neither one of them have run into one yet. Yeah. So if you can't, and at least Benintendi has been pretty consistent, at least slapping a single here or there. But I mean, my goodness, draw a walk. Can we draw a walk once in a while? That'd be something I'd say one of those 9 hitting coaches that we have should start to implore on these guys.
Grifol talked about it being a process about a month ago, about how to change the mentality of, taking pitches, tracking pitches, the discipline, all that stuff. And, that to me I'm infuriated by that, because, well, what were you doing in the off season? What were you doing in spring training? Article after article I read about, wow, look at these things we're working on. We're practicing taking pitches. And Castro spoke about how happy he is with how things are going. And, Tim Anderson going to drive line. And again, you're probably not working on taking pitches out there, but maybe there's a whole package of, just looking for your pitch, the discipline. We have got to be getting on base more. We've got to be seeing more pitches. These 8-pitch innings can't happen, especially with this tougher schedule coming up. And when we look at guys like Anderson and Benintendi, like where's your power? Vaughn, who he goes in these lapses. His numbers, his metrics just are not there. That they can be disappointing. And on, you're like, well, of course, there's a lot of folks that are just sticking out because everybody is sluggish. Robert had a great May. There were some lulls, but that's to be expected. But aside from that, like there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
It's not like we've got 4 or 5 guys that are cooking. And it's like, well, we don't have to worry too much about these scuffling guys, because we've got 4 guys that are they're guaranteed mashers. Like that's what I thought we were going to get. I think we were all looking for that for a while now. Where are these guys?
Yeah.
Where's Moncada, and where's the power from Aloy? I know he was hurt for a little while. Where is that consistently?
Maybe it's not hot enough yet, Nick.
Yeah. Weather and all those luck and all those other things. Yeah.
And Sydney wants to know where the stolen bases are at. I think you have to be on base to steal bases enough, right?
They were definitely there at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, they were for the first couple weeks. I feel like the Sox were stealing a lot of bases and they weren't getting caught. I don't know if there's been a change in philosophy because they're not scoring a lot of runs and they don't want to run into outs, or there are guys that are, grinding, as Grifol will say, which is code, I think, for playing through injuries like Moncada or Anderson for a while. And they don't want to test it. They just don't want to. But being a little bit more aggressive on the base paths, I think, can help. But to your point, we need to absolutely get on base. I think Benintendi's been, swiping a bag from time to time when he can. So look, we'll see how this goes. This coming week, it is, I think, New York and Miami. 3 in New York, and then 3 on the south side against the Marlins, and then moving forward. But that trade deadline's coming, Pat. And I read a lot of articles this past week, as I know Sox fans did, on what do we have to give up? What can we possibly get back? Are there any untouchables? Do you play for this division, or do you say, look, it's not for this division, it's for something bigger, and we're going to get ahead of this. We're not going to just let Giolito walk. There is a team ready to give us a king's ransom for a guy like Tim Anderson, or I can't even imagine Dylan Cease. I mean, he's the big chip, but we have a lot of control over that. And you say we're building for, and you don't trust who's making the decisions. I don't trust who's making these decisions, but that's who we have to deal with. And I know nothing truly will change until Reinsdorf is gone and Kenny and Hahn are gone, but that's not going to happen before the trade deadline. So these are the people that we have to deal with that are going to make these decisions. In your gut as a Sox fan, Pat, where do you lean? Are you like, look, I don't want us to be sellers. I want this division, even though how bad it is and what that might mean for an easy bounce in the playoffs. But I want this 2023. I want the playoff experience.
Hey, man, I talked about it last week. I mean, we're so deprived of playoff experience as White Sox fans. I think if you're this close, let's remove the fact of how many games under we are. You're this close to this division. I cannot see this organization they've done it before. I could be proven wrong. They've waved the white flag with a much better team than this, and a lot better of a position than we're in right now. But I just can't see that being the case, because you look at from a business perspective, Nick. There was a good crowd on hand this weekend, right? There was probably averaging about 25,000 people in the seats, I would say, right? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, some fantastic
great weather. I mean,
great weather.
Weather.
It was a fun time at the ballpark. People want to be out there. I think if you're sellers, I think you're just flushing money down the toilet. And if you're this close, if I'm the owner, I would like to look at it and say, what can we add? Can we trade a Giolito, but can we add to win this year? I don't think it's a trade Giolito and tear it down and get prospects for the future. Can you trade him and get something you need this year? Right. And you'd say, well, that'd be kind of silly because you're trading like a, potentially top end of the rotation type of pitcher. How can you win a division if you're trading away, starting pitching? But if there's a need out there that you have and that you could fill a position with, then maybe you do that. I'm not in the business right now as a fan of going through another rebuild yet. I can be talked into it. You can talk me into it again another time. At this point in the year, I'm not all about just tearing it down, because I think if you start trading, Nick, you have to tear it all the way down to the studs again. And I'm just not there right now. I still have enough belief that, and again, I'm not going to be naive enough to think that they can win anything after they win the division if they do. But I'd rather see that than go the other way. Maybe I'm crazy.
Is there a number in your mind of it gets to late July and the Sox are at a certain number back in the division and you're like, yeah, it's time to sell? Like, I don't think we should be holding on to everybody and try to make up this lead?
Well, I think it's,
If you don't have it, that's fine. I'm thinking like if it's 5 or 6, if you're 5 or 6 games back, I don't know. I
it's
think that might
doable.
be,
It's
yeah,
doable. And again, you got to look at the way the rest of the division's playing. I
yeah,
mean, if you're
maybe.
playing well and you're just, keeping pace, and it's like, okay, eventually one of these teams is going to start to slip up, and maybe we're the team that continues to play well. But if you're looking around at the rest of the landscape of this division, you're like, listen, we're all about the same. And at any point, one of these teams is going to go through a difficult time, and one of us is going to go through a time of winning. Let's gamble on the fact that it'll be us, and we'll be able to overtake this team. But like I had mentioned before, or last week, it's like once you get into September, there's not a lot of games in the back half of that month versus your division. So you have to really make up a lot of ground in July and August, because once you get to September, it's going to be really tough. But anyway, I'm more in the position of let's let it ride, because, and maybe again, it's more about who's making those decisions. I'd rather not have these people making the decisions again until somebody else is in here that will go, okay, this is how we are going to rebuild the entire farm system, rebuild the mentality and the mindset and the coaching staff from the lowest levels of our organization all the way up. So it's one cohesive unit from bottom to top, that it can all be working and going towards the same, end game and the end goal, right? I feel everything that we do is so piecemealed, and nobody's on the same page, and we don't have a quote unquote White Sox way. I mentioned teams like the Braves and the Cardinals and even the Twins of the past. They have these in Baltimore these days that has these great organizations from bottom to top. And that's what I want, but I don't think that's going to change too much if you sell it all off right now. Does that make sense?
It does. It seems like is this the saying process over results? Like, okay, you got the win, but the process, how you went about doing it, is just not sustainable. And that's where I wonder if the Sox say, as a front office, if they can even figure this out, with their competence. Well, the results are favorable. We're 5 games out of the Central. It's July 25th. Folks are calling us. We've got some assets. We could be making deals. Now, the process, though, how we've been doing it, we're still bottom of the barrel in offense. Our pitching isn't very outstanding. Horrible run differential. I don't, this is not the way we want to do things. Like, we are going to go in a different direction to try to really build so we can get a better process going. But then that would mean, in my mind as a fan, I think you've got to get rid of the front office and everything else. Like, I want different people in charge with deciding the process and a new type of process. So it is a weird situation. If Han, Kenny, and Jerry are still going to be around this year, which of course they're going to be, then you might just win the division.
Yeah.
I
think
mean,
those guys, because of their egos, are going to do everything in their power to make this work, especially Han with this manager. It's like, this has to work for him. I feel like, he knows the spotlight's on him, and hence why he doesn't show up for every, press conference, at the beginning of a homestand. So it's almost like, listen, this is all on me. This is all my baby now. And it's really not been going well. Since I've been getting the keys, I have to find a way to make this work. And that's why I just believe it's not going to go the way of selling it all the way down. They might move some pieces, Nick, but I think it's to move pieces to bring other pieces in to help them win this year.
Yeah. I don't think you've got a clear picture right now. It's kind of like series by series, but almost month by month. And even after June, you still might know. It's going to come all the way through July. I'm looking at July's schedule right now, and you got the All-Star break in the middle of the month, but you have Minnesota. You've got a 3-game series with Minnesota, and you've got 4 with Cleveland to end July. Then there's very little division play in August. 3 games against Cleveland in August. And in September, the first part of the month is loaded. You've got Detroit, Kansas City, Detroit, Kansas City, Minnesota, and then on September 18th, you start Washington, and you do not see the AL Central the rest of the season. So, it's something to really like you keep eyes on, and I want to keep guessing, like, what are they going to do, after each series? But like you said, no decision's going to be made right now, and with this division, we might not have answers for a while.
Which is like death by 1,000 cuts, but we'll see what happens. Again, be happy about this weekend. You're close enough. Has Ohtani's home run that he hit the other day landed yet? Yeah. Can you confirm?
It was out on the Dan Ryan. I heard it was out on the Dan Ryan and then bounced into IIT campus area over there. So I'm sure there's some analysis being done by all the architects and the engineers over what happened. And I don't know. It wouldn't be surprised if they did some construction on the Dan Ryan because of that issue. You wouldn't notice with all the other stuff going on. But talk about non-competitive pitches by Lance Lynn. Holy smokes, man. That was quite an outing.
I thought maybe you got out there on the mound that day and just stuffed your shirt and threw some whoppers up there. That was forgettable.
He got lit up by two of the greatest right now going, but at least make it competitive, man. Make them work for it. Trout and Ohtani just destroyed just softballs. Those were, again, I don't know what you were really trying to do. You can't say miss a spot. There was like nothing on it. It was just grooved in.
Well, that's in the past. It's in the past.
It is in the past. Flush it.
3 games.
Flush it, is our leader would say. Yeah,
just flush that one. On to New York. Let's see what happens. New York's playing Sunday Night Baseball in LA. Day off tomorrow for our White Sox, and we'll see what happens. Let's get excited about the week coming up.
Yeah. Hey, Giolito's on the mound. He hasn't pitched in New York since 2019. Giolito's been up and down. Need him to be right. Need starting pitching to be right, and got to have some offense here. But hey, enjoy this sweep. Enjoy the burger bomb, all the highlights, everything that comes with it. So easy to root for that guy, and of course everything that Hendricks has been able to do, and what an awesome Sunday for him. So, folks, really appreciate you tuning in, watching this YouTube telecast. You can find it. Just go to YouTube, search Good Guys Talk Back, subscribe, and catch up on all the previous episodes. We try to do these on Sunday at 8 p.m. Live, but the audio will be available, and you get that everywhere you get your podcasts. Pat, always a pleasure, buddy, talking White Sox with you, my friend.
Nick, it was a pleasure. Can't wait to do good again next week.
Yep. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.